I'll speak to Mark now. Mark is the Shadow Defence Minister and Conservative for Raleigh and Wickford. Mark, did you get the answer you wanted?
No. And the problem is that Labour are ploughing on with this bill, even despite, as you said, the result of the Soldier F trial, which was sub judice for months, so we couldn't talk about it, but we can now. Crucially, Soldier F was acquitted, and the Judge Lynch Casey, said that the standard of proof that was offered against him was, in the judge's words, well below the standard that would be required for a successful prosecution. He also said, in a 2-hour judgment, he was very thorough, I cannot interrogate a piece of A4 paper. In other words, it was based on 2 witness statements, which were 53 years old. One of those people has since died. So the point here is, how can Labour press on with a legacy bill which would expose Northern Ireland veterans, many in their 70s and 80s now, to this whole cycle of investigation and reinvestigation, when a learned judge has said it's practically impossible to achieve a successful prosecution after half a century, and yet still Labour plough on.
It's interesting as well, 6 former SAS soldiers criticising the bill, and they've written a letter to the Financial Times saying that the bill may marginally reduce the likelihood of fresh criminal prosecutions, but it does nothing to end the lawyers' conveyor belt of inquiries, inquests and civil actions. Call it what it is, lawfare by other means. Current proposals will go on feeding a system that grants disproportionate leverage to those most adept at weaponising the process, while the great majority of troubles, deaths caused by paramilitaries are airbrushed into the background. Again, back to the key point in all of this, which is that the army keep records, the terrorists do not.
Correct. And what is really going on here is this is lawfare, and this is an attempt by Sinn Fein to rewrite history, to make the British Army the aggressors and the IRA paramilitaries somehow into freedom fighters. That's what they are trying to achieve. And unfortunately, this Labour government has done a sordid backstairs deal with the Irish government in the Republic to facilitate this process. But look, importantly, the SAS have come out against this. Many retired soldiers, from corporals to generals. I quoted Lord Dannatt, a highly respected former head of the British Army. So this goes right across the rank structure. But the Labour people are now coming out against it. So Lord West, a former security minister under Labour, said recently, we shouldn't be doing this. Lord Glusman, the founder of Blue Labour, said we must reverse it as soon as possible. Graham Stringer, very well respected senior backbencher on the Labour backbenches, said to continue this against one side makes no sense. Why does this matter so much? It's looking as if there could be a crunch vote on the second reading of the Labour Troubles Bill within a few weeks. So Labour MPs are going to have to decide where they stand. Do they stand with army veterans, without whom there never have been a Good Friday Agreement, or do they stand with Sinn Fein? That is going to be a choice for them. We stand with the army veterans.
I stand with the army veterans too, certainly, Mark, but what happens if there is evidence of criminality of either a terrorist or a veteran of the army? What happens if there's so many who, over 300,000 people who served in uniform during the Troubles, but what happens if there's someone, let's say there was evidence of someone in 1985, and evidence comes to light that they took part in criminal actions? Should they not be prosecuted?
Well, the legacy bill, so you've got our Legacy Act, which was the Conservative legislation, and you've got Labour's Troubles Bill to try and repeal it. So just to make a distinction.
Sure.
The Legacy Act offered conditional immunity, both to veterans and to alleged paramilitaries, unless there was compelling new evidence. In that scenario, a thing called the Legacy Commission could have conducted an investigation. If the soldier concerned or the paramilitary concerned, not that many paramilitaries were going to offer to come forward and give evidence, but if the commission deemed they had been truthful and cooperative, then they could be given immunity from prosecution. But if they were deemed to have lied or tried to hide something, they could still have been prosecuted if, crucially, there was compelling new evidence that hadn't been investigated many times before. That is the current legal position.
But you could, Mark, you could hypothetically have someone who murdered someone, who went outside the law, who murdered someone, who said, well, I'm cooperating, I'm doing exactly what I am told to do, I'm being open and honest and giving you all the information after this compelling new evidence comes to light, but nonetheless let down their unit, let down their fellow soldiers and went outside the law. And with what the Conservatives put, there was a level of immunity there. Surely those people should be prosecuted for breaking the law.
Well, this has always been two-tier justice, because none of those veterans who served in Northern Ireland were ever given letters of comfort by the Blair government.
But those were rescinded by Theresa Villiers when she was Secretary of State for Northern Ireland.
Well, they may or may not have been, but the trial of John Downey, the alleged Hyde Park bomber, still famously collapsed when he referenced his letter of comfort. So some people argue they had no legal validity. Well, why
but just aside from that, Mark, but just aside from that point, that's a perfectly valid point.
Well, it's quite an important point.
Well, it's absolutely important, but the point is that if someone had murdered someone in my family 40 years ago, I'd still want them prosecuted.
Look, our Legacy Act still allowed for that, but there had to be compelling new evidence. And what Labour are doing is completely one-sided, because it will reopen this whole conveyor belt of inquests, Clono, Lockroll. These names might not mean a lot to some of your viewers on the mainland, but everyone in Northern Ireland will know what I'm talking about. And it's the whole one-sided nature of the process that we have so vehemently objected to.
Okay.
And we don't feel that Labour's Troubles Bill is in any way fair. And it's not just me that is saying that, it's ex-SAS people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the former head of the British Army. It's even, if I may, the three senior Labour people that I read out as well.
You're absolutely right, Mark.
Senior Labour people saying, drop it.
Okay. Mark, thank you. That's Mark Francois there, who is the Shadow Defence Minister, also the Conservative MP for Raleigh and Wickford.